Get easy throws, easy quick completions, a lot of underneath stuff, and then run the ball a bunch, do a bunch of RPO stuff because he is a load to bring down. You've got great tailbacks at Oregon State, and just see what happens that way. I think this is a really, really good spot for him, and I'm really excited to see what this looks like because Matt Green, the Pac-12 is absolutely loaded. Anyone who's wondering like where the best offenses are going to be in college football in 2023, it's the Pac-12. Like there is just talent atop this conference everywhere at the quarterback spot.
Well, and especially because there's a lot of like knowns coming back in the Pac-12, and then it's like this Colorado thing that's just like what's going to happen there. It's the Pac-12 is going to be fun next year.
For sure. Your team made some surprising moves. Eric Gilbert enters the portal. I don't think that's really a surprise. We'll see what happens there, but who knows? That being said, you get Brock Bowers back for one more year. We'll see. Has Darnell Washington announced what he's doing yet?
No, but Darnell Washington's going pro. He's going to be a first-round pick, like guaranteed.
So you think he's gone?
Absolutely.
No question.
I think there's no I think there's no chance. I think he's done enough just on tape. Like people know what he is. I think he's only scratched the surface of what he's going to be at the next level. Like he's going to be a baller.
And you have Delpit, right? That's his name, the West Forsyth kid.
Just Delp, yeah.
Oh, is it just Delp? Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a Delpit? Was that the LSU safety?
Grant Delpit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have Oscar Delp, and then they just signed. I mean, I don't know if you saw the signing day superlatives. Like I think it was 24/7 ranked each like position group, like who had the best signings: quarterback, running backs, receivers, tight ends. Every position group, and Georgia, they ranked Georgia as the top tight end signee. They signed two of the top 10 tight ends, I'm pretty sure, in this class. And the number one tight end in the country, Deuce Robinson, out of, I want to say Nevada, could potentially pick Georgia in February on the next signing day. So in this class. So it's Georgia's tight end room is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Eric Gilbert, like, maybe I'm not sure he was going to see the field. With Darnell Washington, it's like Brock Bowers is still going to be there. So you're still going to be playing second fiddle next year. Like Trayvon Walker's show, the NFL scouts it doesn't matter if you're not getting the stats or whatever. NFL, if you're doing your job, like NFL scouts are going to see it. And he's done enough. He's put enough on tape. He's 6'8", 270, like whatever he is. He's an absolute freak. I want to see what he does in the combine. But yeah, I think there's basically no chance he comes back.
Yeah, if Jalen Carter only plays the Tennessee game, he's still going top 3.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you need. But you added 2 receivers. One I'm not as surprised about because one thing that Georgia has done well with Monken is the slot guys, right? Like the slot position has been great, and Ladd McConkey's obviously been fantastic for them this year. That being said, the outside, like George Pickens was just a unicorn. Where George Pickens missed a lot of time, that was last year. But there was a lot of fun with George Pickens, and he was a go up and get it kind of guy, a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, that kind of talent. But there's a lot of talent still on the outside in this Georgia receiving room, and a lot of it has been they haven't been able to stay healthy. But I was surprised, like, that Rara Thomas ended up being a guy who's played in the air raid with Leach at Mississippi State, put up good numbers there, to transfer to a spot where I think his targets go down in Athens. You can correct me if I'm wrong, where I'm not sure he's going to be utilized the same way. And I'm curious how Georgia sold him on their offense versus like Tennessee, or why he didn't wait for Tennessee to see what happened there. Because the scheme fit seemed more logical there, and I shouldn't say under the impression, but it seemed like Rara was more, if I had to think like Tennessee or Georgia, like I thought Tennessee had a much better shot at him than Georgia did. But Lovett, Bainbridge kid, I seem to recall, slot guy, obviously led Mizzou in receiving this year. Former 4-star kid, should be a good plug-and-play player right away. That didn't surprise me as much, but I was surprised to see Rara. What do you think this says about how Georgia's approaching this offseason and what might look different about this Georgia offense next year with Rara and Dominic now on this roster, and seemingly on this roster because they plan to start and play next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting. I think Todd Monken's proven that he's one of the best offensive coordinators in college football at this point. Like, I think Georgia, if you are in the portal and a school like Georgia has any sort of, hole that they see and they're trying to recruit that position, I mean, it's the number one team in the country. They potentially could win back-to-back national titles this year. So it's not like a huge mystery on why a guy could be like, oh, I want to be a part of that they got going on over there, So Rara Thomas is a guy that, I mean, with how Mississippi State split the catches this year, I mean, you could have seen him like, I want to go somewhere and like be the number one guy. But maybe he's trying to go somewhere and win championships. And Georgia is also a team that threw the ball more than anyone in the SEC other than Mississippi State this year. And I don't think a lot of people know that because they're blinded by Stetson Bennett's 20 touchdowns. So they kind of think, oh, he's just a game manager, and they leaned on the run. But Georgia was definitely a very pass-heavy team this year. A lot of it went to the tight ends and the running backs. But, I mean, look at Georgia's personnel. The best players are the tight ends and the running backs. So you'd be foolish not to be throwing the ball to Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington and Kenny McIntosh as much as they do. So I think that's another selling point you have as a program. It's like, look, we're throwing the ball to our best players, and those right now are running backs and tight ends. You can come in. We need playmakers at wide receiver. Like, as good as Georgia's receivers have been, there's also a lot of just question marks. There's been a lot of health issues. Like, Arian Smith is a guy who's got like 6 or 7 career catches, probably averaging like 40 yards a catch and a few touchdowns, but he can't stay healthy. This is his 3rd year on campus, and the guy hasn't been able to stay healthy any of the years he's been at Georgia, and he's just been a pretty, minimal contributor. And then like a guy like Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint has taken a step this year, but he's a good player. He's not like a difference maker. Like, Blaylock is another guy who's had some injury issues. Like, A.D. Mitchell was the stud of this group, but obviously he's had his injury issues this year. So McConkey's been by far the best receiver this season. I mean, he's a playmaker, but you to have a guy like Rara Thomas on the outside, like, that's kind of what this team is missing. I mean, that's what George Pickens was. They were missing last year, that they were still able to do what they did last year without him. But I think it's not a mystery to see. It's kind of surprising, of course, to see one team, whoever they are, get the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers from the portal. But I think this is just Georgia's approach. It's like Dabo Swinney took this like holier than thou like viewpoint on the portal, and it's like, no, just because you're in the portal doesn't mean you're like a bad guy, that you're like a selfish like quitter or something like that. It's like, so he made the portal this big deal that now it's like noteworthy that he's gone and landed someone in the portal. Kirby's just like, if we can get high school players, that's the best thing to do. These guys have the most eligibility, and we can, teach them our way and they can be prepared in our system. But if we have a hole that we need to shore up, like, we're going to do that. We're going to go get a Darion Kendrick. We're going to go get a Rara Thomas.
Lawrence Cager.
Yeah, Lawrence Cager, exactly. So, and even if you go back to like JT Daniels, like when like last year, if you look at 2020 and 2021 and you're like, Georgia doesn't really throw the ball, it's like, it was terrible quarterback play. Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis in 2020 was just awful. And then JT Daniels comes in, and that team's throwing the ball 35 times a game. Like, Georgia was throwing it all around when they had a capable quarterback, and that's what Monken wants to do. So even last year, Stetson, he was a little shaky at times, and he was good, but, it felt like you were kind of managing Stetson as the offensive coordinator and putting him in the best position. Whereas this year, Stetson, like, you can see how much confidence that the offense that Monken has in Stetson this year. I mean, he's second in the SEC in pass attempts. So it's Georgia's done a lot with the passing game. I think they've taken huge strides, and it's just a team that's competing for championships year in and year out now. So, I mean, it makes sense if you want to be a part of it.
Do you think this changes Ladd McConkey's offseason decision?
I don't know, because Ladd McConkey is such a he's got such a like a specific skill set that I feel like you still need that. You still need that quick guy in the slot that can get open, that can. I mean, he's a deep threat
him
too.
And Lovett happy is my question.
I think if you're winning championships, man, I think everyone's having fun. So okay. I don't know. you've seen Georgia players like it's a different breed, man. It's like you have to block, like you have to. The stats are great and everything, but Georgia's now proven that they're a program that can get dudes to the league, like first round picks. Like most of them have been on defense, but they can get guys to the league, and so it's like you don't have to put up the best stats. Like your film doesn't lie. So if you can block, you can make plays in the receiving game. Like NFL teams are going to take notice, and you're playing on some of the biggest stages in the country if you're playing at Georgia.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're putting up the same stats as you were at Mizzou. If your draft stock moves up and you're playing in a better scheme, and they're going to find you.
It's like you put up big stats at Missouri. It's like that's cool, but if everyone in the world is watching that Tennessee Georgia game and sees Ladd McConkey catch a 40-yard touchdown, it's like that's pretty sexy too. Like everyone seeing you make a big play on a huge stage, like that's massive. And Rosemy Jack Saint in that game too, a guy who doesn't get like a lot of publicity, like. Made it just an incredible catch in the back of the end zone. Like, so, I think NFL teams, they know enough to like not be blinded by some of the stats, especially just around college football, with what schemes are, how they can stats can lie about how good players are sometimes.
You heard it here first. Dominic Blaylock going in the first round of the NFL. Healthy all 13 games. He's a Ferrari sitting in the garage, just ready to go.
It just feels like Georgia just has a lot of good receivers too. Yeah. Like not a lot of like McConkey's like the one like real playmaker that just kind of like just makes plays, and so Georgia is missing that. So if I think Lovett could add a lot of that to their to him in 2023.
Great.
And Carson Beck, it could be like with Carson Beck too, like there's a chance Georgia's passing offense is actually better, and it's a more traditional like drop back passer. Like he is athletic too, but Stetson it's a little unconventional the way he kind of runs around and makes plays. So, who knows? I got faith in Monken though, for sure.
That's why if you're just looking at, Alabama with their potential opening, if you're Alabama, you're just throwing whatever at Todd Monken. If you're Todd Monken, you get one state closer back home to Mississippi. You gotta seriously consider it if you're Todd Monken.
Not at this point. Like, what is Alabama to Georgia? It's like it's
a
not.
Man can dream, Matt Green.
Alabama's not a better situation than Georgia right now. It's like it's.
I don't know about that.
They're
probably 1A, 1B.
I think you feel confident that the Georgia head coach is going to be there a lot longer than the Alabama head coach is going to be there.
You say that. Saban might. And until he walks away, I'm just betting on Nick.
Who knows? I'm not sure he's mortal still, but we'll see.
Speaking of Alabama, Bill O'Brien, it looks like he is the favorite to go back to the NFL and replace the dumpster fire situation that is Matt Patricia and Joe Judge being co-OCs for the New England Patriots, and just the debacle that's going on with that offense all year long. Turns out making them co-offensive coordinators was not a great decision going into this year from Bill Belichick. And Bill O'Brien has been the OC already in New England. So it looks like he's the favorite to go back if that's how things go. I'm curious, Matt Green. We've seen this before, right? Like, I'm always intrigued by who Saban gets to run his offense next, right? And it seems like every Alabama fan is just dying. If you read the comments on Twitter for any Bill O'Brien thing, they're like, oh, please don't take him. And like, it just tongue in cheek, like, no, Patriots, don't take our Bill O'Brien. And I'm like, okay. Bryce Young has put up bonkers numbers and he's been great. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great player. How much of it was just like the receivers just weren't as good in this group this year? Like, this team last year, I don't think any of us were like, man, this Alabama offense is just not what it used to be. Like, this doesn't feel right. But it did feel like all year there was something off, but I'm not certain how much of it was Bill O'Brien, how much of it was just the guys who all entered the portal who may not have been good enough to be. They just weren't the Jalen Waddles, Devontae Smith, the kind of guys that Alabama's had in years past, and Bryce Young was having to do a bunch by himself. I'm curious to see what it looks like with a different guy, and it seems like that's where they're headed. Matt Green, what do you think they do, and are you intrigued by what Bama does at OC if they make a change? Because